I want to extend a special welcome to a lot of our guests who are here for the first time this week, and I think there's a large group of you, so many blessings to you. I'd like to read to you from Yogananda's book of prayers, Whispers from Eternity. This one is entitled, Reinforce Thou All Our Blended Prayers. The streamlets of our prayers rush out and conjoin with the well springs of our hearts, uniting in a single mighty flow. Our broad, deep-flowing rivers of prayer move swiftly toward thy oceanic presence, breaking all narrow embankments of indifference, dissolving every eddy and large whirlpool of worldly desire, flowing freely over the protruding rocks of bad habits, and straightening the once winding ways of delusion. Our great river of devotion crosses sands of human oblivion, uncounted lives, lost in eternity to present memory, and inundates every trace of past trials and painful past experience. Yet even now thy shores seem far away. Doggedly our flood moves on toward thy sea of shining vastness. Pour thou unceasingly the raindrops of thy mercy, swelling the flood of our prayers, that they reach at last triumphantly thine ever-awaiting shores. So I'd like to tell a little story, and probably some of you have heard this, many of you heard this many times, so bear with me, because there are people here that haven't heard it. But after Sunday service, the minister is greeting everyone coming out, and this couple with a young boy come up, and the minister says to the young boy, "So, do you say a prayer before eating your meals?" And he says, "No, I don't have to. My mother's a good cook." So, there are many ways to relate to prayer for many different people. And that's one of them. But even indeed for each one of us, we relate to prayer in many different ways. You know, if prayer is a new experience in this lifetime, often we become more formal in beginning our prayers. We use a formula. We use a way of doing it. And we're talking at God. You know, we're assuming He's off in some distant place far, far away. And good luck if He's going to listen to me. But then we have prayer for each one of us that maybe as we grow spiritually, as we have a more of an inner life, we start to experience, we start to explore prayer maybe in different ways than that. We're less about pleading to God. Or as this one little story, this man is brought to the court before the judge for his hearing, and the judge says, "How do you plea?" And the man says, "I pleads for innocence." Meaning he's pleading for that, and even though if the case hasn't happened yet, sometimes we know we've got karma, and we plead to God to have an outcome. And as we open up more and more, we shift away from that. We may still ask God of things, of ways to open up and so forth. But even that becomes a stepping stone. Because prayer, as we really grow spiritually, in a sense, is our conversation not to God, but with God. It's really the enjoyment of that experience with God. And so we're less looking at God doing something for us or affecting us, but more that we're cooperating together. We're in harmony with this divine experience. And so there are times, for instance, in groups, we're going to have more formal prayers in that way. And they have their purpose. They really can open up an energy flow that's maybe beyond each of us individually. And even in our own meditation space, our prayers may be more of that desire to have an outcome spiritually, for peace, for joy, whatever it might be. And we're asking the divine God and the gurus to be with us and allow that to happen. But then, as you refine, explore more of the inner life, even that way of approaching it, which is very valid at times for each of us, is a little bit removed. And so we start feeling more and more that our conversation is even not necessarily the words or the thoughts that we have with God. It's the essence, the feeling of our hearts, the essence and feeling of our consciousness. And we start to resonate with that. It's as if the power of intuition, which really in its essence is a deep refinement of our nature, is able to be with God in these very, very deep ways. But you know what? For each one of us, we have to be honest about what's going on with God. Not that we have to denigrate ourselves when we've done, in a sense, poorly in our own eyes, but more in the sense that we want to just feel what's appropriate in this moment with God. There are times when the words are magnetic, they're real, they're reflecting an important consciousness. There are other times when those words get in the way. And so for each one of us, when we are praying, whether it's during the day in worldly activities, whether it's in our meditation space, whether it's in a temple, tune in. Tune into the experience that's happening for you. Tune into what's being in that unfoldment for you in that experience now. If you do that, your intuition will allow you to touch on the experience of faith. Faith can be understood as that reality of who we are coming into a deeper experience and understanding of the divine, where belief is more the sense of intention, opening up, seeing what's really going on in our own experience and the experiences around us. And so belief is really a very, very important tool to set something in motion in our lives spiritually. But belief left unto itself has some real challenges to it. The challenge that we see a lot of in the world and a lot of in religion is that if belief isn't allowing us to come to a deeper experience, we're caught in a dilemma. We don't know what's really true. We may have a glimmer of that truth, but the dilemma is this, is that we yearn to have that spiritual connection, that spiritual experience. But if we're not endeavoring through the inner techniques of communion, we're not going to arrive necessarily, but by good karma and perchance, in that same experience. So what can happen if we don't have the experience being there along with our beliefs is that normally in the world there's two directions that happen. We have people buying into it, that belief, in a dogmatic way because they don't know for sure. They've been told this is true. They yearn to have it to be true. But they're dealing with a dogma. And that dogma isn't that open to other people's dogmas. But the other direction that happens when belief is there, standing by itself, without the experience of going within and of that of faith, is that we reject it outright. Because there's no substantiating it from our understanding of it, just going with belief. And isn't that what's happening for the world a lot? There's a great rejection, There's a great over-exaggerated acceptance of dogma. And the time is really now to know God, to really experience God, that faith becomes the unfoldment of who we really are spiritually. That's the power that will bring us to that fulfillment of feeling the illumination in every part of our lives, and ultimately the freedom from all bondage of being jivan muktas, liberated while living. But we each, in our own way, have very dynamic possibilities before us. It's not as if we're going to fit ourselves into something to have these experiences. More importantly, to emphasize for each one of us, how do we get to a deeper, expansive way of living our lives in every moment? Not just in the spiritual moments, although actually there are no other moments than spiritual moments. And if you look at it really insightfully, that every moment of our lives is a spiritual experience. That's why we're here, to gain from those experiences, even if they seem mundane or menial, or they're just confrontive issues in our lives. Those are spiritual moments designed to help us to deepen our experience. So if we can orient in everything we do, in everything we are, is probably a better way of phrasing it. In everything we are, we're opening up to the possibilities of the divine touch, coming in this moment. And what happens if it doesn't come in this moment? Our continuous effort to move towards that ultimate experience of oneness in God can always happen. You know, we talk about that there are times when we're going to stumble, metaphorically and literally, that we may just stumble. We get up from our meditation seat and our legs asleep and we stumble and we tumble. But in every part of what's happening, if we can just say, but what is it that's trying to happen going forward? Not so much what has happened, although we do want to introspect and learn from the things that have happened. We want to gauge what happened on the battlefield today, in terms especially of our choices, our ways of relating to the world around us, and the way that we're relating to God throughout that day. But then that's the springboard. That isn't the focal point, that's the springboard to lift our energies anew, to really open up to the deepest possibility in this moment. Parvati was saying, as an introduction to the purification ceremony, it's always a good thing to introspect about. When the ministers, at the end, when each person comes up and say, I seek purification by the grace of God, and we respond, and then we sit there together and we tune into the blessing. Then the minister says, after a moment, by the grace of our masters, you are free. And Parvati did a good job this morning of saying, so what does that actually mean? Are you in absolute freedom in this moment? Could be. But it may not be. Does that mean you're not free? The freedom comes by the attunement and the willingness to be in the flow that produces that freedom. That is freedom in this moment for each one of us. That's not just a desire, a hope. It is the experience of reality for us if we can open up to it. So the test is not so much that we pass something or fail something in our lives. The test is, what do we do when that happens? Because it's almost a guarantee that there are things that we may not pass in this moment. I mean, I was befuddled. You heard me, that first chant I did. I couldn't believe that suddenly I lost it. I've probably chanted that chant on a harmonium, 1,000 times, 2,000, 5,000 times. It's not a new chant. But it was just amazing that suddenly, where did it go? You all did well continuing it, but then I had to catch up and, but I thought, so what do I do? I mean, literally I thought, in this nanosecond thought, so what do I do now? And I did my best. I reset. You had to stop and reset with me. But I thought, wow, that was probably because this topic today revolves around what do we do in the moment? So my prayer at that point was not, oh my God, but it was saying, let's move the energy. Let's continue on. And I kind of smiled to myself because I thought, interesting. But that idea of let's just move forward. Let's just go where the energy can be more open and expanded. We always can do that. We can always choose that. So our prayers are sometimes just the feeling of, let me move forward. And in this case, with this chant, it wasn't so much a prayer for, I wasn't pleading for innocence or help in that way. My whole consciousness was tuning into, be with me, Divine Mother, be with me, Master. And so the prayer was more the sense of my openness to be in that experience going forward. That is real to us. It's a very practical way. It's not like it's some esoteric spiritual thing that we're looking at. We're talking about the practicality of taking the steps that are real for us. That not only do we open up to possibilities, in that moment we know who we really are. Beyond the flubs or the successes, those can be there to reflect and guide us as well. But inside that, inside ourselves, inside God, we really are with that faith that comes from the experience of knowing who we are. And Yogananda, in his transcribed talks on faith, he said this interesting thing. He said, faith is not entirely possible without deepening calmness. And I thought, well, let me take some time to really tune into that. Because it's got a lot of layers in this very simple phrase that he said, that faith can only be experienced in its deepening way through deepening calmness. And so I thought, what's being pointed out by Yogananda here is to be at your own center. Remember, this is the reading from the Bhagavad Gita, to be centered no matter what distractions happen, because that allows us to be integrated in the experience rather than alongside of the experience we have faith and there's life. No, it starts to experiences because that calming centeredness comes to the point of knowing that's who we really are. That's our essence. That's also, in a way of understanding, it's the way that we can express our essence in the world. So it's not just there in the essence, but we have the possibility of that essence coming into expression in the world around us. Well, again, let's invite that for each one of us to happen. Let's invite the divine experience to be there with us as we open that possibility. And we start to feel that whatever way we're approaching things, how do I open up more to it? How do I find my center more? Because the irony at times is, sometimes our desire may be great to be centered in God, and our meditations are full of enjoyable experiences that aren't tuning into God. They're being waylaid by distractive thoughts. They're being pushed aside. That centeredness is being pushed aside by, oh, my back aches, or, gosh, I can smell that dinner being cooked. That all we need to do is recognize, that's happening. That doesn't mean we have to be directing our energy or thoughts to those things. We bring it back inside. Always think, my home is where I want to be. I want to be home with the divine, with God and Guru. And when we're able to do that time and time again, life itself supports that. It may support us by having us face more challenging tests. It isn't as if things run smoothly as we open to that deepening experience. But we find ourselves in readiness, ever more attuned, ever more aware of that divine touch all the time. That is where our home is. And that is where, in that experience of our home, we can live a very fulfilling life in the craziness of this life around us. Let's do that together.
Brave were the people who lived in these hills. Brave the great warriors who confronted the foe. To defend what is holy, to defend what is true. Our Lord of mankind did this duty.
Thank you to all of our donors for making it possible to share these videos and keep this channel ad-free. If you feel inspired to donate, visit ananda.org/give.